I'm very excited to join you, and a warm welcome to those who have joined as delegates to the PEPESA, GBS and BPO event today. I am joining you from the East Coast in the United States, but I'm originally from South Africa and very passionate about the market and very excited to share with you insights today, advanced insights from for investors from the South Africa GBS Quantification and Investment Report, which is going to be summarized into the GBS Investor Handbook, which has been further summarized for my presentation today. So I'm just going to be giving you some of the advanced insights that we can share. And this basically shows you the cover of the report that we are about to release. And if you go into detail in terms of the methodology. So we interviewed over 220 executives across South Africa. We also conducted a range of in-depth qualitative interviews. And you can see the length and depth and breadth that we covered in terms of the survey. So we really wanted to make sure we got really good insights from the industry. The survey respondents came predominantly from the four major provinces, but we did weren't able to interview executives in the other provinces. So Gauteng, Western Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, and Eastern Cape were where the predominance of the respondents came from. In the actual investor handbook, we are also referencing other research that has been conducted, both from ourselves as well as from other partners and research houses. And it starts off with macro and economic highlights on the country. As Andy mentioned, there's been phenomenal growth in the industry. In fact, just between 2018 and 2021, over 46,000 jobs were created in the sector, generating in excess of 791 million in export revenue for the country. The estimated combined GBS and international workforce sits at just over 260,000 workers, and that translates into a domestic and international market size of about 4.7 billion. The rest of the slide gives you an overview, some of the macroeconomic overview stats of South Africa. The economy is sitting at 369 billion. Forecasted economic growth at 3.5% in 2021. The exchange rate sitting currently at 15.51. It does fluctuate, but that actually presents a very favorable environment for would-be investors because of the exchange rate being quite favorable compared to the US dollar. There are a number of different delivery locations in the country. Andy did allude to those, and you can see here the populations of some of the major metros and cities that they have the scale, the ability to deliver GBS services. That is on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, the population breakdown. You can see there's an equal population in terms of male and female population, and also a great sizable youth population in the country. This gives you an idea of the youth populations by province. And you can see it broken down by the Eastern Cape, Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, and Western Cape, which are predominantly the provinces that are delivering major BPO and GBS services right now. Currently, the youth unemployment rate in South Africa is just over 64% in the 18 to 35 years age group. And that presents actually an opportunity because there's an abundance of talent that can be tapped into for GBS and BPO services. Andy actually covered this in his presentation where he covered the source market locations. Important to note that 61% of international services from South Africa is currently delivered to the UK market, 20% to the United States, which is a fast growing market for the sector, 8% for Australia, 7% delivered into other African countries, 3% into Europe, and then 1% into China. You can see the split here by vertical industry. So this gives you, again, a very good view of the key vertical industries that are serviced for those source markets. Telecoms, retail, utilities, and energy are the top three, but there also is significant growth that we are predicting in insurance, healthcare services, and technology, as there's a lot of major players that are coming in this regard. It gives you an idea of the same view, but by horizontal services now. So here you can see that the predominance of services provided from South Africa sits within CX and contact center services in the columns marked in blue. And that includes inbound and outbound customer service and inbound and outbound customer sales. But there are other areas that are being serviced, including IT services, which sits at just over 4%, as well as specialized business process services that sit within back office support, finance and accounting, legal services, human resource management, and also personalized services such as online tutoring. The next slide gives you an idea of some of the awards and rankings that the country is currently receiving. Andy alluded to the fact that South Africa was noted as being the most preferred CX offshore delivery location by the Global Front Office, BPR Front Office Omnibus Survey by Ryan Strategic Advisory. And in addition to which, over the years, it has received various awards and accolades, including from, we heard just earlier from Kerry, from the GSA, as well as from other notable organizations that have awarded and ranked the country in various categories. But I also just wanted to give you some insights in terms of what buyers and investors think of South Africa. So Knowledge Executive and Genesis Global Business Services recently ran a global survey where we conducted interviews with over 360 global buyers and enterprises. And as part of that survey, we included very pointed questions where we wanted to understand what would make them outsource to South Africa. We knew that we were going to be conducting the national survey, so we wanted to augment the findings of the national survey with a global view. And so this is what they said. So in the CX and voice services environment, we asked them, so what would make you outsource customer experience and voice services functions to South Africa? The top elements that would make them consider that were cost performance benefits, no surprises there, work at home and on-site hybrid working models, the ability for vertical industry specific expertise and talent, industry professional contact center and CX standards, and of course, leading edge data protection and security capabilities. But there were other elements such as the ability for them to diversify their geography footprint because of business continuity, as well as tap into a scalable pool of talent. The next slide gives you an idea of some of the other service areas. So in finance and accounting, again, we asked them, what would make them outsource their finance and accounting services to South Africa? The top 5 elements that they would be looking for included launching automated and intelligent finance and accounting processes with experts, potentially in South Africa, exposure to finance and accounting best practice, reducing their F&A running costs, tapping into advanced F&A expertise and talent, and also receiving integrated value-creating F&A service delivery. When looking at legal services, they would also want to reduce their legal running costs, as well as tap into great expertise, and launch automated, intelligent legal functions and processes. But they also would look at wanting to look into tapping into skilled litigation and paralegal support, as well as expert legal research services. The next slide gives you an idea of the HR management and digital and ITO services that they're looking for. So in HR management, global buyers and investors would be looking at improving their employee experience, and they would be looking to outsource providers, potentially in South Africa, to help them do that, as well as accessing the best or latest HR technology and receiving benefits administration services. The country is able to offer this. I'm going to cover that later in this presentation, as well as tapping into flexible staff, on-demand or gig workers. Kerry alluded to the fact that that is a big growth area, and certainly is we picking that up from a global perspective. And then decreasing their HR running costs. When looking at digital and ITO services, they would want to tap into skilled data management services, data analytics and data science expertise, reliable technical help desk services, which the country is able to deliver, fintech services, and then of course tapping into a scalable pool of digital and IT talent. Andy made a very good point in terms of the fact that South Africa, when compared to other markets, it is a bit higher in terms of its cost, loaded operating cost that is. But one of the standouts for us in both the national survey as well as the work that we did for the GBS master plan was that when we interviewed investors and buyers that have already set up in South Africa, they indicated that South Africa offers very good cost value functions and advantages. Currently, the country delivers 18% better customer experience when compared to competitor markets, including higher first call resolutions. And this translates into 4 to 5% better customer retention as a result, which then further translates into greater customer lifetime value and bottom line profits for investors that invest in the country. So basically, the fact that the country delivers that great CX, that translates into better customer retention, means that the customer lifetime value of the customers that are serviced from the country are more profitable. And so that translates into better benefits for your investors and for your buyers. The next slide basically covers compliance and regulation. So the country is very, very compliant in various areas. GDPR compliance is in place, a number of ICF certifications in place, from contact center standards to data security, as well as quality management. PCI DSS is also in place for credit card management, as well as a range of other compliance and regulatory policies that help and guide the country in that regard. Then in the Action National Survey, we asked those organizations that we interviewed for the national survey, what are they doing with regards to their data protection and cybersecurity measures? What are they busy implementing? Well, you can see here that the top 5 in terms of what they've already deployed and what they're currently deploying was what were highlighted. And it ranges from various elements such as providing at-home access to restricted systems for their at-home workers, regularly remote monitoring of IT equipment and computers, constantly updating their data protection processes, as well as also adhering to cybersecurity and also ensuring that they have a limited nature and volume of additional personal data processing in place. The next slide goes more into the work from home deployment that providers in the country are busy with. Again, on the left-hand side is the top 5 that have already been deployed. On the right-hand side are the top 5 that they are busy deploying. The country is very much geared towards work from home fulfillment and hybrid working models that has already been put in place quite well with the COVID-19 pandemic, and the ability for the country to ramp up and to ensure that it could deliver essential services during that period. So there are a lot of work from home, work at home, and hybrid working model processes in place. And you can see some of these here. That includes work at home programs for agents, communicating best HR practices to them, making sure that there are business continuity plans in place, as well as also further down the line, mental programs for virtual sense for virtual agents, as well as virtual collaboration and culture management for those agents that work at home. The next slide gives an indication of the business continuity initiative that they deployed. And you can see again here, there are a number of different elements that have been deployed, from the conducting regular business continuity planning to multi-location crisis communication plans that are putting in place, detailed business continuity plans with ranked recovery priorities, multiple forms of disaster recovery simulations. These are all different elements that providers and that operators in South Africa are busy putting in place to make sure that the country is geared up from a business continuity perspective. When looking at skills, Andy did allude to the fact that there is great talent coming into the industry. This gives you an idea of some of the university graduates by field of study in science and engineering, business management, as well as other areas of studies. And you can see that there is definitely a good number of graduates that are being added to the labor pool every year. The next 2 slides Andy actually covered, so I won't spend too much time with them, but important to note that there is great talent in the country, offering high levels of empathy, high EQ, superior English talent, both written and spoken, and strong cultural affinity with markets such as Australia, the UK, and the US. And the next slide basically goes into the specialized pool of talent that is available, enabled to provide legal services, HR services, research services that would-be investors could potentially tap into. Important to note that the country, when you benchmark salaries in terms of contact center salaries with those of the source markets, the country comes up very favorably. This gives you a view of salaries benchmarked against the key source markets of Australia the UK and the US, as well as Europe as a region. And you can see South Africa comes up very favorably, sometimes 60 to 70% lower in salary costs when you compare it to the source markets. There is a slightly different view if you go to the next slide when you look at the competitor markets. So, South Africa is slightly more expensive than some of the other markets, such as Egypt, India, and the Philippines. But as mentioned earlier on, this is augmented by great retention, customer lifetime value, and bottom line profit benefits for potential investors that invest in the country. The other elements are that the country offers us good multilingual capabilities. So there's great English language speaking talent. This is a strength for the country, but there are potential pockets of other multilingual skills in the country, ranging from Afrikaans, which is very similar to Dutch, French, Italian, and German speaking populations in the country. And then another important thing to note is the diversity of the country. So South Africa and the GBS sector is very well known for its diversity. 54% Black workers, 32% mixed race, 10% Indian. And the ratio of male to female workers is 65% female to 35% male workers in the industry. So very strong on diversity. And this also translates into the next slide on impact sourcing. So from an impact sourcing perspective, roughly 1/3 of the current workers in the industry are impact workers, which is about 78,000 to 90,000 workers in the country. And they provide a number of different benefits for would-be investors. In the surveys that we conducted with organizations that do utilize their skills, they say that they provide, better attrition. There is greater commitment from them and dedication, and this translates into greater long-term savings as a result. The total cost of ownership is 3 to 10% lower with these type of workers. The next slide is basically given an overview of the different services that are being provided in the country, and this has been coming from the national survey that we conducted. So in the contact center BPO environment, frontline voice and customer experience services, inbound and outbound customer service support are the two top services being provided, followed by outbound sales calling, and then digital contact center services or channel support. Other areas being fulfilled include customer churn, lead generation, retention and cross-selling and upselling, as well as customer lifecycle management. When you look at digital contact center services, the country is a lot of the operators in the country provide omni-channel services or have omni-channel facilities in place to cater for multiple channels, followed by predictive IVR routing, social media, and web chat services. And then other channels that are being fulfilled include chatbots, voice video chat, and instant messaging. Looking at data analytics, which is the next slide, the data analytics capabilities in the country to augment the services and support the services that are being provided include contact center data analytics, customer personalization analytics, and then a range of other analytics, including speech analytics, behavioral analytics, predictive analytics, as well as social media analytics. Looking at back office services, the major services currently being provided for the international market from South Africa include operations or administration support, transaction processing, and order fulfillment. And then there are other elements that are being provided, which includes customer and case management, data management and data support, data entry, complaint closures, and also reference checks are predominantly also offered from the country. Looking at finance and accounting, the major services here being provided are payroll services, financial processes and controls, finance and accounting strategy, accounting, planning and analysis, procure to pay services, order to report services, and technical accounting services. And then there's a range of other accounting and finance services that are being provided from operators in the country. Again, the country has got great pockets of finance and accounting skills, including a great pool of chartered accountants in the country. When moving to legal services, a lot of the current operators are providing integrated legal services to the international market, litigation support, legal writing services, and then review and management. Other services being provided include compliance assistance, contract drafting, legal research, claims processing, and automated legal processing. And that feeds through into debt recovery and credit lifecycle management. There are a lot of really good operators in the country that provide debt recovery and credit lifecycle management services. And this sits within arrears and notice communications, retail and service collections, utilities collections, as well as other forms of debt recovery, debt rehabilitation, and credit lifecycle management services. In terms of human resource management, multi-process human resource outsourcing is the predominant form of services being provided in this regard, followed by recruitment process outsourcing and benefits administration outsourcing. There are also pockets of learning services outsourcing being provided and project-based outsourcing. And then we're looking at the international next-gen digital expertise. You can see here that there are pockets of great capabilities and expertise in the country, ranging from artificial intelligence to data analytics, robotic process automation, data science, machine learning, and mobile application support. And this also translates into the international IT enabling and ITO services provided from the country. Technical support is the predominant form of services being provided, and application support and management, and application development. And then there are other forms of IT services, IT support services that are being provided from the country, which is listed in the other section of this infographic. Important to also note that many of the operators are big on measuring their success, making sure that they're delivering great customer service, great customer experience. And that sits within first call resolution measurement, net promoter score measurement, IVR surveys, and then running CSAT surveys. But there are other forms of measurements and ratings that they adhere to, including customer effort, connected device data, service resolution rates, customer lifetime value and ratings, as well as customer journey interaction. And then finally, in this regard, social media channels supported by the country include Facebook, LinkedIn, and WhatsApp. That's basically for the international market, where providers are utilizing these channels to provide services and to support services with consumers, with international consumers. And then there are others coming on board, including Snapchat, as well as Instagram, that are also coming on board, where providers are starting to utilize those channels to also connect with consumers. As part of the national survey and also other surveys that we conducted, we were tasked to also put together value propositions for the four major provinces: Eastern Cape, Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, and Western Cape. I'm not going to go into too much detail about those. These will be included in your packs, but just to point to note that from the Eastern Cape perspective, it's very strong on automotive and logistics services, with the potential to provide great customer care support and services in the automotive sector. And definitely very much a budding and burgeoning province, and has the ability to grow into a really good BPO and GBS hub of choice. The next slide gives you an idea of some of the major operators and brands that are currently in the Eastern Cape. This is not an exhaustive list. There are a lot of other brands, but it gives you an idea at the top of the current BPO GBS operators, as well as some of the major clients and brands that are sitting within the industry. You can again see here the strong automotive focus of the province. The next slide covers Gauteng. So Gauteng is very much renowned for its niche domain, IT enabling skills, its shared services capabilities, as well as also its strong vertical industries skills in financial services. And it has a very much a multifaceted, multi-talented ecosystem in this regard. And the next slide gives you an idea of some of the operators that are based in the province. Again, major GBS BPO operators in the country are listed in the province are listed in the top column, and then some of the major brands, both domestic and international, that are being serviced from those operators. KwaZulu-Natal is well known for being a results-driven sales and credit lifecycle management province, with enterprising talent and people-centric ability, and reputable domain knowledge and business process expertise. Very much a people-centric, results-driven mindset in the province. And if you look at the next slide, gives you an idea of some of the major brands and BPOs that are also located in KwaZulu-Natal. Again, very good cross-section of operators and brands that are currently based in the province. Then, of course, we have Western Cape. So Western Cape is a world-renowned end-to-end customer experience lifecycle management hub, globally recognized for business process outsourcing, and has the largest base of installed seats in South Africa, facilitating end-to-end customer experience lifecycle management services, as well as a highly conducive enabling environment and notable cost performance benefits. The next slide gives you an idea of the operators in the province. Again, you can see here that there are a number of great operators and major brands that are based in Western Cape. The rest of the presentation basically goes into some of the other factors. So Andy covered the lifestyle factors. Just important to note that the country does have these great delivery points and hubs that can deliver GBS BPO services with great lifestyle factors that enable them further. Great weather, great beaches and mountains, really great living environments and living standards measurements for these different locations. Setting up a company, which is the next slide, is fairly a straightforward process with the support of Invest SA, which is the one-stop shop for national investment promotion, as well as provincial investment agencies that are based in each province. And then Andy covered the ICT infrastructure in the country. So here you can see that there definitely is great 4G LTE coverage at 92%, as well as great 3G coverage at 99%, and also mobile penetration. And the next slide gives you an idea of the fiber that is being rolled out in the country. There's been a lot of investment in that regard. Fiber is definitely a lot of areas in the country, and a lot of areas in the major metros have been fibered. And this gives you an idea of some of the kilometers and miles of fiber that has already been laid in the country. And he mentioned that and the global connectivity. And I believe Ms. Juanita also mentioned that Google is also about to land. So this great ICT infrastructure is further facilitated and further augmented by global connectivity to these cables that connect South Africa to the global network. The next slide covers property and real estate. In the major cities and metros, there are very favorable rental rates for T grade, A grade, and B grade offices. And this gives an idea of the average monthly rentals per property grade. And then if we move to the next slide, you'll see again how favorable it is to travel to South Africa. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but Andy did mention the fact that there is the average flight times to South Africa is quite favorable. This gives you an idea of flight times from South Africa to lost my slide here. Okay, to North America and to Australia. And then the next slide gives you an idea of flight times from South Africa to Europe and the UK. So again, very much service. There's a lot of international direct flights into South Africa from these locations, which means you just get onto one plane to get to the destination. The GBS incentive program very much supports the industry with the thanks of the DTIC and Invest SA. And this is a great incentive that enables South Africa to be very cost competitive, reducing OPEX costs by between 8 to 10%. And again, it very much supports the way that South Africa is able to deliver these services effectively, and also for it to be able to compete with markets such as India and the Philippines. And in that regard, there are other investor guarantees and incentives in place. I won't go into too much detail on these, but this is covered in the investor handbook that support the sector and enable, again, for further investment in the sector. Lastly, the country does perform quite well on the World Competitiveness Index rankings for the World Economic Forum. You'll see that if you go to the next slide, the country ranks very favorably in terms of financial services as well as innovation. And definitely a lot of elements that score well for South Africa as a market. There are areas that also need to be addressed and areas of concern, which is also noted here. But generally, the country scores quite well with regards to global competition. And that is the end of my presentation. I just want to thank you again, and thank you to everybody today for listening in. And I look forward to sharing further insights with you. Thank you.